Hey guys, OGL Mina here, and BDSP has been leaking, but it finally officially got like datamined and completely dumped, so we have pretty much all the information for the game. This is going to be the precursor, this is going to be the warning. I'm going to be talking about a lot of datamined stuff, a lot of datamined information as it pertains to competitive Pokemon, movesets, items that are going to be in the game, what the Pokedex is looking like, all that stuff. So if you do not want to be spoiled, I shouldn't have put anything spoiling in the thumbnail, and the title shouldn't spoil anything either. So if you do not want to be spoiled, this is your warning. If you don't really care, which I assume a lot of people don't, because like this game is a 15-year-old game at this point, and it's a remake. So if you don't worry about that stuff and you don't really care too much, go ahead and keep watching. If not, come back and watch this later on after you play through the game in a week or two. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the data mines, all the stuff that we know from them, and how it pertains to competitive Pokemon. So I'm not going to be talking about music or anything like that, though I've definitely been paying attention to stuff like that. I'm going to talk about the data mine and how it pertains to competitive Pokemon and what it means for this potential metagame. So yeah, if you guys enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like, and if you're new here, be sure to drop a sub. Plenty of BDSP content going up, whether it be Nuzlocking stuff for it, different guides potentially. Wi-Fi battles are going to be all over the place. Draft leagues will be back and all that good stuff. So definitely sub to the channel for more. We're pushing towards 600, and I appreciate if you help me out. So with that being said, let's do it. First off, I'm going to start off by showing you guys the Pokedex. Now, this just confirms that the Dex is just the 493 from Gen 4, from Platinum. Now, we do note that there are some, Platinum forms. Like, we see good old Shaman Sky down here. And by the way, these are, like, new 2D sprites that were designed for it. They look awesome. I love them. But we see like Shaman Sky in the game. We also see Giratina O, things like that. So we know some Platinum exclusive things are going to be in the game, which is definitely good to know. But this is just to show there's no national decks in the game. There are also no, Galar forms or Alola forms in the game. So no Alolan Ninetales, no Galar Weezing, no Alolan Marowak, anything like that. They are out of the game. They are not in the game at all, and there's no Sylveon. A lot of people thought Sylveon might be in the game, myself included, because Eevee obviously evolves into it, and there's fairy types in this game, presumably. That's not the case, unfortunately, so no Sylveon. And what that means for the metagame is obviously it's a much more condensed dex, so it's going to be a lot different than what you're used to. You're going to see a lot of Pokemon that weren't as good, in Sword and Shield with all the Pokemon in it, or in Usum with all the Pokemon in it, really rise up and be a lot better. But something else I kind of wanted to touch on with Sylveon not being in the game is there's a real lack of fairy types in this region. And if you didn't pay attention to, or if you weren't around, obviously, I don't know, a lot of people weren't around during, the Diamond and Pearl competitive days, dragons, offensively, were off the chain. Very, very good, because there weren't fairy types prior to Gen 6, and in Gen 4 especially, there wasn't as many steel types and things like that as well, especially viable ones. So dragons were very, very solid offensively. Things like Dragonite were great in OU. Mence and Garchomp both got banned. Latias was banned for a long time before it eventually got unbanned and things like that. So lots of interesting things to note when it comes to dragons, as there's just not a lot of fairy types. We have Clef, which is going to be a premier fairy type, probably the premier fairy type. And then scrolling through, let's look. I don't see too many. I think we have Jinx and Igglybuff probably in here. Wigglytuff in here somewhere. But there's not really too many good fairies. We see a Granbull right here. Is there any other Togetic? Might be okay, but we'll kind of talk about why it might not be when we talk about items and things like that. That's a little precursor to what goes on later in the video. Granbull, it's very budget, not very good fairy, to be completely honest. Gardevoir, not the most defensive fairy in the world from the Spedef side for sure, but those physical threats, not so much. We'll keep going. We will keep going. I'm not really seeing too much. I could totally be glossing over these, as I'm very much so rushing while recording this. But yeah, there's very few and far fairies in between. We obviously have Togekiss as well down here in Gen 4. But dragons are going to reign supreme again in my mind. Before I was thinking, if there are more forms and things like that, if we have Galar Weezing and Sylveon and, mons like that, Alolan Ninetales even as a more offensive, speedy option, I was thinking, maybe they won't be as crazy this gen, but I think they might be just as crazy this gen, to be completely honest. They're still absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, that's really everything with the decks. There's just it's Gen 1 through 4, nothing too insane. Look at these very pretty sprites. We can kind of scroll up a little bit. Scroll across. Let's see my boy Mence before we move over. Oh yeah, look at that Chad. Okay, cool. And next up, I really want to talk about items, because there are some items that are just not in the game. Basically what we're seeing when it comes to like competitive items, things like that. Now you'll see some new items, like they have the image, at least, for the what do you call it? The beast ball in here. So like that shows they have some newer items, I guess, and they have like nature mints and things like that, like a lot of bottle caps, some quality of life things. They have a Roselli berry in there now, which obviously for the newly acquired fairy types that are in the game. But there are a lot of items missing from competitive Pokemon that are around now. Number one, and I think the biggest one, is boots are not in the game. And that makes hazards, again, infinitely better, especially because, as far as I know right now, there is no confirmation if defog works the same. I assume it will work the same, but it's not going to be the most widely distributed thing in the world, because a lot of these moves were tutored via like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon got a lot of the defog ones. So let me check something. Actually, let's just type in defog right here, and we'll go to this in a minute. This kind of shows you know, the movesets and things like that were leaked. Let's see. Oh, defog is a TM now. Oh, I mean, it's a TM in general, so I guess a lot of Pokemon are probably going to get it. I'm wondering if Rotom gets it, because I know Rotom is a very, very premier defogger. So I do kind of want to see this. Let's see. Rotom does not learn defog, from what I'm seeing. Yeah, Rotom does not learn defog, so that's a very premier defogger gone. It was a tutor move, so I'm assuming all of the Pokemon that got defog via TM in DPP will have, you know, defog, but the Pokemon that got it via tutor later are not going to have it, things like Rotom. So that's definitely something very interesting to note, on top of the fact that boots are no longer a thing. They're gone. That means hazards are going to be infinitely more valuable. They're going to be just as valuable as they were back in the day. So spikes are going to be back. Rocks are going to be back. You're going to see T-spikes, you know, in full swing. We're going to see a lot more hazard stack once again. So I think that's a very, very big one. Another one to note is there's no Eviolite at all. Eviolite's not anywhere to be seen. I believe Eviolite was introduced in Gen 5, so it is not in this game right now. Some mods like Chansey and Porygon 2 and Togetic and Clefairy is a very budget fairy are not as viable and not as useful as options. So that's something that's actually really, really interesting on the game for me. That's something that definitely makes me a little bit like, oh man, that's pretty crazy. Another big defensive item that's gone right now is the Assault Vest. Assault Vest also, I believe, was it Generation 5 or 6? I think it was Generation 6 in which Assault Vest was used. And Assault Vest, for those you don't know, is just, you know, if you can only use attacking moves, but to boost your Spadef by one stage, I believe, just like naturally. That's a big one gone. It's a phenomenal item in competitive Pokemon, especially in Draft League, which I play. A lot of mons and a lot of teams are going to be using Assault Vest on a weekly basis, so that's something very interesting to note. And I believe the last one that somewhat big is there's no air balloon. Now I could be totally missing some, so if there's an item that I'm missing that is not in the game that has a big impact on competitive Pokemon, maybe like Protective Pads is another one I haven't mentioned. Is Rocky Helmet an item in this? I don't remember if Rocky Helmet. I can't see Rocky Helmet. It might be in here. I don't remember when Rocky Helmet was introduced, to be completely honest. I think that might also be Gen 5. So if Rocky Helmet is in it, that's another really big one gone. But again, I could be tripping. Let me know if there's any items that I missed in the comments below. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, right now a ton of things missing. Balloon is a really small one. Like, it's gonna suck for some Pokemon. But I don't think there's an air balloon. And I don't remember if like Heatrans and things like that used to run air balloon. When was air balloon introduced? Maybe it was introduced later. That's pretty crazy. But everything else that we know of old is still there. All the choice items, Life Orb, Toxic and Flame Orb, we see an Extra Belt, a Light Clay. We see a Wide Lens, all the weather boosting rocks. We see leftovers and Black Sludge and things like that. We see all the boosting items like Soft Sand and Mystic Water and things like that. I believe we also see the Soul Dew, which is another interesting one to keep in mind. We see King's Rock. So we still have all of those competitive items, but there's a lot of them that are indeed missing. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then also, we also got all of the movesets leaked. I will link the tweets that I found these from. I believe they're from like Pokedex on Twitter, maybe some from Matt Yukon, maybe some from Central Leaks. I'll link the source from which I got these from on Twitter, so you can obviously go check out the people who tweeted these on Twitter instead of just, you know, looking at it through me, if you want to take a look through the movesets yourself. But we kind of showed this a little bit earlier in the video. And this is the movesets of all of the Pokemon. Now, something to keep in mind is a lot of these Pokemon got big buffs in Sword and Shield. One I wanted to talk about in particular is something like Latios and Latias. Latios and Latias, both in Sword and Shield, got Aura Sphere and Mystical Fire, which is great coverage for them. Now, let's go. I want to look at this one. They do not get any type of coverage like that because those aren't TMs anymore. And a lot of moves that were turned into TMs and TRs in Sword and Shield are simply not the case in this because it's a faithful remake. Moves that were TMs before are TMs now. They didn't really add any new TMs, at least from what I can see. So things like Latios definitely took a hit in that. Now, do I think Latios is going to be bad? Of course not. Latios is probably going to be insane. It's probably going to be banned potentially. Latias even. Another thing to keep it. Oh, and I guess I can talk about a couple of Pokemon. Like for one example, I saw that Venusaur doesn't get Weather Ball or Earth Power anymore. Just at all. It doesn't get them in general. There's definitely a ton more Pokemon with like examples like this. Those are just the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So definitely feel free to look through this. Comment which ones you're like, man, this is a nasty debuff. Like, this sucks. Definitely comment those down below. For sure would recommend it. And then the last, a couple of other big things is Toxic. Toxic is a lot like Sword and Shield, where it is not a TM anymore, actually. And it's really only reserved to Pokemon via level up, and things like that. Like, that's the only way you're really going to see a ton of Toxic. You're not seeing like Pokemon like Garchomp aren't going to be able to run Toxic in this metagame or anything like that. And from what we've seen, it's pretty hard. I don't think it's really going to be super possible to transfer a lot of these mods up, at least initially. Maybe there will be a home compatibility update later. I don't really know, to be completely honest. If there'll be like, you know, a patch where we can transfer up DPP mods from Sword and Shield and transfer their moves, but I wouldn't think so because things like Scale Shot aren't in the game. So I guess it's another big move. There's a lot of Dragons lost Scale Shot, like Garchomp lost Scale Shot. Can't really boost his speed anymore. Don't worry, he'll still be okay though, I promise. So that's something very, very interesting to keep in mind as well. And I feel like there's something else that I'm completely missing that I wanted to talk about really bad, but I'm absolutely blanking on what that might be, to be completely honest. Oh my gosh. So we talked about items, we talked about the dex itself, we talked about some moveset buffs and nerfs. Not really any buffs, a lot of nerfs. I guess, one thing we don't know right now is abilities, and I wanted to, you know, mention that. We don't, at least at the time of me recording this, I don't have a list of the abilities, whether or not there will be hidden abilities, whether or not the abilities will be updated. Like, will Pelipper get Drizzle again? Will Torkoal get, you know, what do you call it? Drought. Will Ninetales get Drought? Will Politoed get Drizzle? Like they do in later generations of the game, because we saw some things of Pokemon getting stuff from later generations. Like, for example, Lucario gets Meteor Mash in this game. I think I saw it in trailers, and there's no way they just would pretend like that, or just only have that. Yeah, so look, Lucario is getting Meteor Mash right here. It didn't get that until Gen 7, I think. I think they used to run Iron Tail for like a strong steel stab before from the physical side. So some things are newer, but how much of it will be newer is a really good question as of right now that we don't really know, to be completely honest. Now, that's a big thing. We also don't know if mechanics will be updated. I kind of talked about defog before, but also with weather. Something that Burgo mentioned to me when I was just in call with him is, will weather be, you know, permanent again? Back in from Gen 5 prior, if weather was set by an ability, it stayed that way until it was changed either by another weather setter, which back in the day there used to only be 3, before Gen 5. In Gen 4 it was T-Tar for Sand and then Groudon Kyogre, which you obviously don't see much outside of Ubers. Those are the only ones that were setting the weather, and they could kind of flip-flop and just, oh, and Obama Snow for Hail. Sorry, totally forgetting Big Obama. So will that be 100%, you know, will that be like a 100%, you know, always going thing unless it's reset? That's another really big thing to notice, because weather will be insane if that's the case. Absolutely insane, especially if we, you know, add in all these weather boosting abilities and things like that. There are reasons that, like, you know, Swift Swim mods and things like that were just raw banned in a lot of metagames and things like that in Gen 5. Like, whether like Swift Swim stuff was like banned at some point, I believe. So a lot of really interesting things that we found out, and a ton of questions still. Like, we really are missing a lot, so we won't really have a lot until we actually, like, get to play the game and play through them and things like that, once we have abilities, all that stuff. And it's gonna be a fun time. So if you want to, you know, join me along this journey, let me know what you think. comment what you think some of the biggest nerfs were, what you think it's going to be really good, and whether or not be like OU, or whether it be Draft League, which is what I focus on a lot here. Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.